this storytelling thing was beaten into me, like almost like as an existential threat when I was like trying to raise money at Handshake. I had this like, let me spend a couple of minutes here because I think it's worth it. Like I was a member of a CEO peer group when I was running Handshake. And this is when we were coming up. We had done our Series A. We're on the way to the Series B. And I was a member of a CEO peer group that met in San Francisco. I was from New York. So I'd fly out there once every 3 months and do the meetings. And I went to the first meeting, and most of the guys in the peer group were CEOs of tech companies or biotech companies. But one of the guys in the group was the managing partner of a VC fund. And his name was Phil. And on the first one of these meetings, each founder got up and like did the little pitch for their business. And I got up and I was like, yeah, it's Handshake and it's wholesale. And like, there's these sales reps and there's these businesses and they need to like trade and like, it's a huge problem. And we've got this mobile app and blah, 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 blah. And I told my whole thing. And I think most people in the room were like, oh, we totally get it. Like, you know, we see the business thing here. And at the dinner that evening, Phil kind of like sat down next to me at the dinner and he was like, hey man, it's like, tell me the story. And I was like, I did tell you the story. And he's like, no, man, tell me the story. Tell me something that I can like feel. And I was like, oh yeah, it's this wholesale thing and there's the truck lifts and there's the FedEx trucks and there's the iPads and there's the order books and blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, dude, tell me a story. And he beat me into the ground over like, I don't know, I must have sat there with him for an hour with him just being like, no, just tell me the story over and over and over and over again. And I eventually got to a story that was, I literally ended up making it up on the spot. I was like, you know, when you go into a store and you walk in there looking for a particular thing and you want a white t-shirt in a particular size and you go to the shelf where that shirt should be and it just isn't there. And it should be there. That is literally what we are doing. We help the companies with the shirts make sure that they get to the right stores in the right time so that when you get to the store, the shirt that you expect to be on that shelf is actually there. And just multiply that by all the people in the world and all the shelves in the world and all the number of times that you've gone there and it's not been there. That's what we're solving. That's not even a very good story. But finally, Phil was like, I get it. I could explain that to my mum and she'd actually understand what you did. And since then, I've just understood that I'm like, if you do not tell someone a story that they can see themselves in and they can like empathize with, you can say all the numbers in the world, you can describe all the processes and analysis in the world. No one gives a shit. No one's got time for your shit. And so like, I really, really, really try to encourage people to find a way to tell the story. Like humans are emotional creatures. And like, if you can't get me to feel something, I'm probably not going to care no matter how many numbers you throw at me, you know?
I totally do. Before we touch on like that there how in terms of the communication, what do you do if you have two different personas? Say you have the customer and the retailer. The story may differ. Do you see what I mean? The pain is different. What do you do then if you're storytelling? You just have different messages for different personas?
You can, but I mean, at the end of the day, like you really do need to, you need a story that you want. The best stories work for everyone, right? Like they don't make two versions of Aladdin. There's one version of Aladdin. And like you just, you know, great stories work. And I just think until you can get there, you're not really doing your job.
And how do you say that then to your team? Like, is this stand up at an all hands and say, you know that feeling when you go into the store and there's no t-shirt?
Yeah, how do I tell the story to my team?
How do you imbue that to them and make them feel it?
I don't actually know what the answer to this is, because I think this is another one of those things that if there was an answer, like everyone would be an amazing storyteller. I think people respond to authenticity in stories. I think people can tell when you mean it. Like, I think people can tell when you, the speaker, actually feel the thing. And yeah, I think it's just like the passion and the enthusiasm that you tell the story with. And
would you ever
the extent to which you made it relatable.
Would you ever tell a story you don't feel?
I can't. That's one of my problems, is that like sometimes people give me scripts to read and I'm like, I'm not going to read this bullshit, because if I did, you would hate how I would read it, because everyone would know I didn't mean it.
Yeah, I totally get that. Can I ask, in terms of the communication, how do you like? I think a lot of founders struggle with the repetition. Like, how important is repetition in storytelling?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. You need to keep saying the thing. Like, you'd be shocked how fast people forget things. Like, this is why compelling storylines with just like memorable sound bites are so important, because you only get to lodge like a few words in someone's brain before like every word you add pops one out their other ear. And you only get to choose like maybe 3 words you can lodge in someone's brain at any given point in time, and you really need to choose what they are.